Take a breath with me for a moment. Let it out. If you're listening to this episode, there's a good chance you're carrying a kind of grief that doesn't always get acknowledged. Not the kind people bring casseroles for, not the kind that comes with sympathy cards or time off work, but the kind that lives quietly in your heart. Today, we're talking about grieving what never came. The life you expected, the relationship you hoped for, the prayer you believed would be answered differently, the career you thought was going to happen, the version of yourself you thought you'd be by now. And before we go any further, I want to say this clearly. I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from what I've been through. I'm speaking from what I've seen. And your grief is valid, even if there's no obvious loss to point to. So join me. I'm Dawn Olivia. This is another episode of Resilience with Dawn Olivia, guys. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you to my listeners that's listening wherever you are. I thank you and I appreciate you very much. My resilient ones, some grief comes from absence, not endings. It's the grief of the marriage that never happened, the child you hoped for, the apology that never came, the healing you prayed for, the future you planned so carefully in your mind. And because there's no clear moment when it ended, we often tell ourselves we shouldn't still be hurting. We say things like, other people have it worse. I should be grateful. Why am I still stuck on this? But minimizing your pain doesn't heal it. It just teaches, you to suffer silently. And loving yourself through healing means telling the truth about what hurts, even when it's uncomfortable. My resilient ones, this is part one of a 5-part series that I'm doing entitled Loving Yourself While You're Healing. So here's why grieving what never came can feel so heavy. Because you didn't just lose a possibility, you lost a version of yourself that was attached to that dream. The you who believed, the you who hoped freely, the you who planned their life around something that never materialized. And when that future didn't happen, it may have quietly shaken your identity, your faith, your trust in yourself. That kind of grief doesn't just ask what happened. It asks, who am I now? Who am I right? And that's not weakness. That's humanity. Self-love means permission, not pressure. One of the first acts of self-love in healing is permission. Permission to grieve without explaining yourself. Permission to feel sadness without labeling yourself ungrateful. Permission to acknowledge disappointment without losing faith. You can love God and still grieve deeply. You can be strong and still feel lost. You can move forward and still mourn what didn't happen. Scripture reminds us in Psalm 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Notice it doesn't say why they're brokenhearted. It simply says God is close. God is close. Your grief doesn't need justification to be met with compassion. Again, your grief doesn't need justification to be met with compassion. Letting go of shame or grief. Many of us don't struggle with grief. We struggle with shame about grieving, and my God, it's deep. Shame says, you shouldn't be over this, or you should be over this. You shouldn't still care. You're holding yourself back. But hear me clearly. Grief does not mean you're stuck. It means something mattered. And loving yourself means releasing that belief, releasing the belief that you have to rush healing to prove you're strong. Release it. Healing is not about erasing disappointment. It's about integrating it with grace. Thank God for His grace. Again, healing is not about erasing disappointment. It's about integrating it with grace. Give yourself some grace. I want to invite you into a gentle moment of reflection. If you're able, take another slow breath. Like I just did. I'm going to take another one too. We're going to breathe in. And let it out. And quietly ask yourself, what have I been grieving that I never gave myself permission to say? Maybe it's a dream. Maybe it's a season. Maybe it's the person you thought you'd be by now. My God. You don't have to fix it today. You don't have to release it today. Simply acknowledge it. You might even whisper or write, I give myself permission to grieve this. That alone is an act of self-love. As we continue this healing series, I want you to remember this. You are not behind. You are not weak for still feeling this. And you are not failing at healing. You are learning how to love yourself honestly without denying what hurt you. And that kind of love is not shallow, it's sacred. My resilient ones, I wrote an ebook called Trusting God Through Your Tears. I wrote it in purpose for moms that had lost children. But I've read it, I've went through it because I give you some prompts, I give you some things to journal, to write, think about, some scripture, some prayer. Um, it's for any type of loss. I believe it will help. You could go on my website, resiliencew.donolivia.com. Scroll to the bottom, it's there. You can scan this QR code if you're watching the video on YouTube and purchase it. Share it. Yes, I'm allowing that because I want all of us to heal. Gift it out. In the next episode, we'll talk about what happens when trauma and disappointment change who you are and how to learn to accept and love the version of yourself that emerged after the pain. Until then, be gentle with yourself. This is Resilience with Dawn Olivia, where healing meets faith and resilience begins within. My resilient family, thank you for listening. Stay well. Always stay safe. And always, always stay resilient. And remember, your grief is valid, even if there's no obvious loss to point to. Love you, family.